She married for love, but when money vanished, so did her loyalty. 2 years later, he returned, not to beg, but to buy the very company her family once used to look down on him. What happened in those 2 years? How did a poor man become rich so fast? This shocking Nigerian folktale-style story is full of twists, drama, and real-life lessons you won't forget. Watch till the end, because the final scene will leave you speechless. Please subscribe to this channel for more stories. Like and share this story with your loved ones. The rain that morning wasn't just falling, it was weeping. A steady, relentless drizzle poured over the red earth of Enugu, soaking the faded bricks of the Carter residence. Inside, silence reigned, not the peaceful kind, but the sharp, suffocating kind that wraps around your throat before a storm. Nathaniel Carter stood at the edge of their sitting room, staring at the old wooden table where he used to eat breakfast with his wife. The clock above it ticked, uncaring. The cushions were still dented from where Chantelle had last sat, hands folded, lips pursed. He didn't need to ask again. The bags at his feet already answered the question. His shoes were muddy, his shirt damp with sweat, and the envelope in his pocket, his final severance, felt heavier than gold. "Say something," he said, voice cracked. "Please, Chantelle." She stood by the staircase, arms crossed, the silk robe barely hiding the tension in her shoulders. Her once soft eyes were hard now, like a woman who had watched her dreams dry up in a drought. "Nathaniel," she said, "I have carried you long enough." His heart thudded. "I lost my job, not my mind," he replied quietly. "I'm still the man who built this house with you. The same man who—" "No," she cut in, "you are not. That man had potential. That man had drive. You walk around with your shoulders slumped like life already defeated you." Nathaniel blinked rapidly. His fingers twitched. "And I should carry you," she continued. "My friends are hosting fundraisers, starting fashion lines, flying to Dubai. And me? I'm hiding rent notices from the neighbors." He stepped forward, pleading. "Chantelle, just give me time. The project in Kaduna." "There is no project, Nate," she shouted. "You've been chasing empty promises for 6 months. Look around you. My father's legacy, BriggsTech, could have hired you. But you said no, because of principle." She mimicked his voice mockingly. Nathaniel's face tightened. "Your father cheated my team out of their bonus. I couldn't stay." Chantelle laughed bitterly. "You chose your pride over our survival. And now, we're finished." She walked to the door and opened it slowly. "Nate, I loved you. But love doesn't pay the bills." He didn't move. The rain outside smelled like earth and betrayal. "Don't come back," she added, quieter now. "Not until you're somebody." By dusk, Nathaniel walked down the muddy slope outside their estate, dragging a small trolley bag with a broken wheel. The clouds above grumbled as if heaven itself mourned with him. He passed the mango tree where he once carved their initials during courtship. It had grown thicker, but now, someone had etched a new heart over his carving. At the park bench across from the house, he sat alone. For a long time. He pulled out his cracked phone, no messages. No missed calls. Just an old voicemail from his late father. "My son. Life is like a mango tree. Some seasons, the fruit will come late. But no good tree bears bitter fruit forever. Keep watering. Keep believing." With trembling hands, he opened his worn leather wallet. Inside, one folded paper, aged and creased, still remained. His father's note. "A man's true fortune is never in what he has, but what he dares to do when he has nothing." He looked up at the Carter residence once more. Lights off. Curtains drawn. Nathaniel rose, exhaled, and whispered, "Let the ashes speak." He turned, and walked away into the night. Where he went, even he didn't know. But the fire within had just been lit. The city lights of Enugu faded behind Nathaniel Carter like a chapter closed before its final paragraph. He rode a cramped interstate bus headed north, destination uncertain, soul exhausted. His suitcase sat on his lap, one wheel missing. No phone signal. No messages. No wife. Only silence. The man sitting beside him, a Hausa trader with tobacco-stained teeth, said little. But when the bus lurched to a halt near Kaduna, he tapped Nathaniel on the shoulder and said, "Brother, you look like a lion that forgot it has teeth. Kaduna na rough, but if your mind's strong, you go rise again." Nathaniel nodded, unsure what to believe. 3 weeks passed. Then 6. Nathaniel survived by sweeping a petrol station floor during the day and sleeping behind an old generator shed at night. He fixed tires and broken radios for spare change, eating puff-puff and gari soaked in sachet water. He said little. But he watched everything. It was in that grime and grease that the old man first saw him. Alhaji Ibrahim Bakery, a near-mythical figure in northern Nigeria, known for his camel exports, his sprawling solar farms, and for firing anyone who greeted him with empty flattery. Bakery's black Land Cruiser broke down one humid afternoon on the outskirts of Zaria. The driver yelled for help. Everyone else stepped back, but Nathaniel stepped forward. "Let me look," he said quietly. He didn't ask. He didn't boast. He just crouched, stripped his shirt off, and in 10 minutes flat, restarted the V8 engine using wire scraps and a metal spoon. The engine roared to life. The Alhaji raised an eyebrow. "Where did you learn that?" he asked. Nathaniel wiped his forehead with a rag. "From failure, sir." Bakery stared. Then nodded once. He climbed into the car, said nothing, and drove off. The next day, a sleek black Prado arrived at the petrol station. Nathaniel was asked to get in. He was driven 2 hours into the desert outskirts, to a sprawling, walled farm compound with solar panels shimmering in the heat. Inside the compound stood a single man, Alhaji Bakery, dressed in a simple white kaftan, sipping kunu under a neem tree. "You fixed a car," he said. "But that's not why you're here. I've been watching you. You work quietly. You don't lie. You teach the younger boys math at night with chalk and a plank." Nathaniel was stunned. "Sir, I just needed work." "The world needs men who work without shouting," Bakery replied. "I have 3 failing divisions. If you can make one of them profitable in 6 months, I'll give you part of it. Not salary. Ownership." Nathaniel nearly choked. "Why me?" Bakery smiled. "Because true lions don't need to roar." 6 months later, CarterTech was born. What had been a dusty, mosquito-infested cassava field was now a solar-powered manufacturing outpost, producing biodegradable packaging for local food sellers and government hospitals. Nathaniel hired local youths, trained ex-convicts, and used scraps to build automated machines from old car parts. They called him the Machine Whisperer. At night, he wrote letters to himself in a journal labeled, "If She Ever Asks." He never sent them. But he never stopped writing. One morning, a tall British-Nigerian woman stepped out of a jeep at the compound, sharp grey suit, braided bun, and eagle eyes. Lucille O'Connor, partner at a renewable venture capital firm in London. She had heard rumors of the southern engineer turning sun into machines. She stayed for 2 days. Watched. Asked hard questions. Left. A week later, Nathaniel got a call. "Come to London," Lucille said. "We want you to lead the next chapter." As his plane rose into the skies, Nathaniel looked down at the land that had bruised him, then built him. He whispered one line. "She said I was nothing. Now I'll show the world what nothing can become." London, 2 years later. Nathaniel stood in front of the glass wall of his high-rise office, overlooking Canary Wharf. The River Thames shimmered below as the city pulsed with its usual symphony of traffic, ambition, and secrets. Gone was the man in threadbare shirts and broken sandals. Nathaniel Carter now wore bespoke navy blue suits and Italian shoes polished to a mirror shine. His hair was trimmed close, beard lined neatly, and his once weary eyes now burned with quiet control. He didn't just survive. He reinvented. Across the glass office door hung the name in matte gold. Carter Renewables, founder and executive director. It was a name whispered in energy circles across Europe and Africa, a rising star who built a sustainable packaging empire in Nigeria and then launched a battery storage initiative that attracted global investors. The world saw him as a genius. Only Nathaniel remembered that it all started with rejection. Every morning before meetings, he opened a drawer in his desk and looked at a worn photograph. Chantelle Briggs, in a sky blue dress, her hand resting proudly on the shoulder of her father, the late Sir Harold Briggs, founder of BriggsTech Nigeria. It was taken at the opening of one of the company's auto tech labs in Enugu, the same lab that Nathaniel once worked in, and later walked out of when he refused to sign a contract that would cheat local workers. Now, Sir Harold was gone, and so was the company's shine. BriggsTech, once a titan in the African manufacturing space, had collapsed under poor leadership, mounting debts, and outdated technology. The final nail? A pending auction of the company's remaining assets, to settle outstanding bank loans. And at the center of it all, trying to keep it afloat, was Chantelle, his ex-wife. Lucille O'Connor entered his office without knocking. She held a folder. "You'll want to see this," she said, placing it on his desk. Nathaniel opened it. Auction notice, BriggsTech Nigeria. Starting bid, 2.4 billion Nigerian nairas. Auction date, 8 weeks. Location, Abuja. Assets, factories, patents, name rights. Lucille raised an eyebrow. "You told me this was personal. Now's your chance." Nathaniel stared at the paper. He didn't speak for a long time. "Do it," he said finally. Quietly. "Through my holding firm. I don't want them to see my name until it's too late." Lucille nodded. "What will you do with it?" He closed the folder. "That depends on how she looks at me when I walk through that door." Back to Nigeria. The private jet landed in Abuja under the golden haze of early evening sun. As he stepped out, the breeze carried a mix of dust, diesel, and distant memories. 2 black SUVs whisked him through the city. No press. No fanfare. Just business. He arrived at Grand Orchid Hotel, where the closed-door auction was to be held. Inside the marble-lined hall, Nathaniel sat quietly in the back, flanked by Lucille and 2 legal aides. Then she entered. Chantelle Briggs. Hair longer, body slimmer, face harder. She wore a black power suit that masked her panic. She looked like a woman drowning in silence, holding her breath for too long. Nathaniel's breath caught in his throat, not from desire, but from the shock of how unfamiliar she looked. She didn't notice him. Not yet. Bidders murmured. Numbers were called. Chantelle paced near the front, whispering frantically with bankers and lawyers. 2.4 billion Nigerian nairas. 2.5 billion Nigerian nairas. 2.8 billion Nigerian nairas. She bid 3 billion Nigerian nairas. The room gasped. That was everything she had scraped together from private investors. Then a calm voice at the back. 3.2 billion. Chantelle turned, and saw him. Time stopped. Nathaniel sat still. One leg crossed. Expression unreadable. Her mouth opened slightly. She stumbled backward. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." The auctioneer slammed the gavel. "Sold. To Mr. Carter Holdings Limited." Dead silence. All eyes turned to Chantelle, whose face drained of color. Nathaniel stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked past her without a word, his cologne, his calm, his power overwhelming. "Wait," she called out, almost a whisper. He paused. Looked at her over his shoulder. "You once told me not to come back unless I was somebody," he said. "I hope this version meets your expectations." He left the room. The lion had returned. Not to beg, but to reclaim. Grand Orchid Hotel, Abuja, 1 hour later. The auction was over, but the shock had only just begun. Nathaniel Carter stood in the courtyard of the Grand Orchid Hotel, the sound of birds in the distance, as his new legal team finalized the paperwork for BriggsTech Nigeria, now officially his. The same company that once refused him a seat at its boardroom table, was now his to do with as he pleased. Lucille O'Connor joined him with a calm expression, holding a glass of Chapman. "It's done," she said. "All assets transferred. Full control." Nathaniel took the glass, eyes fixed on the fountain ahead. "Do you know what's funny, Lucille? 2 years ago, they wouldn't give me a 50,000 Nigerian naira severance. Now I own their patents, their buildings, their name." Lucille sipped her drink. "And the woman who told you to leave with nothing?" He didn't answer. In a dimly lit lounge upstairs, Chantelle Briggs paced like a woman being chased by her own past. Her lawyer sat silent, not sure whether to speak. Chantelle stared at the bidding receipt in her hand with trembling fingers. 3.2 billion Nigerian nairas. The final nail. She had begged investors for weeks. She had sold her jewelry, put her Enugu townhouse up as collateral. All to try and save her father's legacy, and in one bid, the man she cast aside took everything. But what stung more, was that he hadn't gloated. No "I told you so." No revenge speech. Just calm power. "He was mine," she whispered to herself. I built with him, until... She paused. Remembered the moment he stood at the door years ago, soaked, heartbroken, waiting for her to change her mind. But she didn't. And now he had walked out again, only this time, he had won. It was after 9 p.m. when Chantelle found him standing alone in the hotel's indoor garden, beneath an arched hibiscus trellis lit with warm golden lights. Nathaniel heard her footsteps, slow, hesitant, and didn't turn. "So, it's you," she said. He nodded slightly. "Yes." She stepped closer. Her voice cracked. "You came back. But not for me." He turned now, eyes calm but unreadable. "I didn't come back for you, Chantelle. I came back in spite of you." She swallowed hard. "I was angry," she said. "I felt like I was drowning. You stopped talking. You were always trying to fix everything yourself." He looked at her. "You were supposed to be my lifeboat, not another wave." A long silence. "Do you hate me?" she whispered. Nathaniel looked up at the stars. "No," he said softly. "I loved you. Deeply. That's why it hurt so much when you treated me like a failure instead of a fighter." She wiped a tear quickly. "I was scared. So was I. But I didn't run from you. You ran from me." Another silence. Then, "What will you do with BriggsTech?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Rebuild it," he said. "But not for legacy, for purpose." "Will I be a part of it?" she asked quietly. Nathaniel smiled faintly. "You were part of the pain. But this has to be born from peace." He walked past her gently, like a breeze through old curtains. Not angry. Not bitter. Just done. Cameras flashed as Nathaniel exited the hotel. Reporters swarmed. "Mr. Carter, is it true you used to work for BriggsTech? Why did you buy the company? What message do you have for your critics?" He stopped. Straightened. "I have no message for my critics," he said into the microphones. "But for anyone who has ever been underestimated, build in silence. And one day, they'll hear your name from the rooftop they once told you you'd never reach." And with that, he entered the black SUV and disappeared into the Abuja night. Weeks had passed since the auction in Abuja. News of Nathaniel Carter's dramatic acquisition spread like wildfire. Blogs called him the Return King. Business shows hailed him as a self-made visionary. But none of that noise reached Chantelle Briggs the same way that silence did. Because Nathaniel hadn't called her. Not once. She watched his interviews, tracked Carter Renewable's rising stock price, read headlines about the rebranding of BriggsTech into CarterTech Africa, and still, not a single message. She was no longer living in her late father's estate. That house, the same one she and Nathaniel once shared, had quietly been purchased and absorbed by a holding company registered in Delaware, traced back to Carter Group Holdings. Chantelle didn't need anyone to explain. Nathaniel now owned everything her family once called theirs. It was a cloudy Thursday afternoon when she stood at the gate of her old home, the same gate she once closed behind Nathaniel with her pride high and her heart guarded. Now, it was her knuckles that trembled as she knocked. The security man, unfamiliar, eyed her cautiously. "Madam, you have appointment?" "No," she said, voice low. "But please tell Mr. Carter. Chantelle is here." He hesitated. Then disappeared behind the metal gate. She waited. 1 minute. 3. 7. Just as she was about to walk away, the gate creaked open. The house had changed. It was cleaner, quieter, no marble lions or overpolished gold frames. Nathaniel had removed all the things that screamed wealth, and replaced them with things that whispered peace. A warm breeze drifted through the open patio doors. There were books on the coffee table. Faded pencil sketches. A small framed photo of his mother and father beside a Bible. He stood by the window when she entered, sipping from a ceramic mug. No bodyguards. No assistants. Just him. He turned. Eyes calm. Distant. Still, something flickered, just for a second. "You're here," he said. "I had to see you," she whispered. "Everything feels like I've been asleep, and now I can't breathe. Now you know how I felt when you closed the door on me." She nodded, eyes misting. "I was wrong." Nathaniel didn't speak. She stepped forward. "I thought pushing you away would protect me from shame. But I ended up losing more than a husband. I lost a good man." He set his mug down. "Do you want forgiveness?" he asked. "I want a second chance." Nathaniel walked past her on Saturday. "I didn't build this version of my life with bitterness. I built it to prove that even discarded seeds can grow forests." She knelt in front of him now, tears falling freely. "I don't want your money. Or the company. I just want you to know. I see you now. Fully. And I am so sorry." He looked at her for a long time. "I never stopped loving you, Chantelle," he said, voice thick. "But I stopped waiting." That sentence crushed her more than any insult could have. After she left, Nathaniel sat alone in the same room where she once told him to leave. He placed her old wedding ring, which he had kept all these years in a drawer, on the table. Then he lit a single candle. Not for hope, but for closure. 6 months later, in Enugu, the name BriggsTech no longer existed. In its place stood a reborn, reimagined company. CarterTech Africa. No fancy launch party. No ribbon cutting. Just a press release with one bold mission. To build technology that empowers the forgotten, and turns scrap into systems that serve. The headquarters was relocated to Enugu's outskirts, near the very bus station where Nathaniel once slept on cardboard. What was once a decaying auto factory now buzzed with solar energy, young engineers, and rows of students attending free weekend classes on mechanics and software. And leading the charge wasn't a boardroom executive or a foreign consultant. It was a 23-year-old mechanic named Tajuddin, a former street kid from Kaduna whom Nathaniel had once taught to repair wiring with bottle caps and scrap. Tajuddin now stood behind the CEO's desk. Because Nathaniel believed the throne should go not to the loudest voice, but the hungriest heart. Chantelle now lived in a small rented bungalow with no servants, no gates, and no inheritance. Just her, and her choices. But this time, she made different ones. With the help of a local NGO, she opened a free women's clinic in the very community she once ignored. A place where single mothers and battered wives could get counseling, health checks, and small business loans. The same society that once worshipped her father's wealth now whispered of Chantelle's humility. One evening, while organizing donated baby formula in the storage room, she received a parcel with no return address. Inside was a single item. Her old wedding ring, cleaned, polished, and tied to a handwritten letter. The letter. Chantelle. Some things are meant to be buried. But others, even when covered in dust, still shine when the light finds them. I forgave you long before you asked. Not because you deserved it, but because I deserved peace. We are not the same people anymore. And that's a good thing. True love doesn't always return the way it left. But sometimes, it leaves gold in the dust, if you're willing to look. Nathaniel. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she closed the note. She didn't know what the future held. Whether they would ever find each other again in that way. But she knew this. She had finally found herself. And that was more valuable than any diamond. Nathaniel stood barefoot at the edge of a red earth field just outside Kaduna, children playing behind him as the sun sank low. A boy tugged on his shirt. "Uncle Nate. You coming to class?" Nathaniel smiled. "Be there in 5. He pulled a small journal from his pocket, the same one he carried when he slept under bridges. He flipped to the final page. Wrote one line. "From ashes, we rose." He closed the book. And walked toward the laughter. Never discard someone in their season of struggle. The stone you throw away today may become the foundation of something too powerful to imagine tomorrow.